Okay, 8:30. Y'all may be in some other chat, but I wanted to bring some info in while I had a break. I've been so busy the last 2 days. I had to stop and get me a Sprite to drink. I needed some bubbly. Okay, so there has been some more information in the Petito case, and I am just glowing. Yeah, that's a little bit better, but I'm not. I'm wanting to let y'all know there's been some new information in the Petito case. I am translucent. And I was watching just a moment ago on, well, let me say, yesterday when I did the last video, and then I was talking with some people in the comments. I said, my fear is that if, which it looks plausible that this is the most possible scenario, if Brian is the one that potentially committed this offense and came back to Florida in the van alone, then I stated, due to that one conflict with the Popo, that he was probably going to say that this was a lifestyle cycle that he was constantly in, and he was going to claim the victimhood status and state that he finally had to defend himself, and it came to this. Don't believe he's going to no longer be able to do that, should that be the scenario that we see come forth from the investigation. And that is because just a little while ago, Fox 13 Tampa Bay, on their YouTube news page, posted a video, a news story, stating that there were other 911 calls. This one came, I don't know if before or after the women that called from the city, which resulted in the Popo meeting with them. But someone called the 911 number and stated, we're seeing a man slap a woman. He slapped her several times, apparently. Again, it's Fox 13 Tampa Bay, their YouTube page. So apparently, the 911 call was not an isolated incident, which is, for me, is seeing the behavior, and I told you that they had pattern behaviors to handle the behavior, so it had to be something that happened quite often, so it doesn't surprise me. But this is good, because now that we have a 911 call with with witnesses that state he was not purely the victim all the time, he was an aggressor at times, then it kind of sets aside the thought that I had yesterday that I was afraid he was going to come forth if he was found and possibly state, hey, this is a lifestyle that I'm in. I'm constantly the victim. I'm constantly being in the middle of domestic violence, and I snapped because I had to defend myself. Because we've seen people use that as a defense in the past. Now with this 911 call and this witness, that potentially is off the board, because now we have a witness IDing him as an aggressor as well. So I wanted to get on here and let you all know that, because that kind of shakes things up a little bit. Should he be found and taken into custody, and lo and behold, it come to pass that he is the one that potentially committed this heinous act, it will change his defense. So that's very important. Yeah, very, very important. And also I wanted to state that it also shows that this is a cycle of behavior. This is something that they did over and over and over again. And it seems like he did switch from victim to aggressor, victim, so perhaps that's why I was seeing two separate kinds of demeanors. I think he was probably just a little bit more charismatic at hiding it, potentially. So yeah, big news. Could potentially change everything, but still I believe at the root of this was just a very toxic, codependent environment where domestic violence unfortunately became a norm. It became a way of expressing emotional frustration, which is never okay. Learn how to use your words, people, not your hands. And sadly, it escalated until it resulted in potentially the death of Miss Petito. So this is a huge, huge kind of update, because it takes a lot of checkers off of his checkerboard for the game I think he may be potentially playing with law enforcement. Now, is there some kind of weird something that could come out where he was on foot for 4 or 5 days and ran across the van and it was empty and he drove it home and didn't know what was going on? And potentially. However, However, now with this secondary 911 call and witnesses, it states that this was a predominant behavior. And for him to not report her missing and drive that vehicle, especially if it was registered solely in her name, drive it back to Florida and immediately lawyer up, it tells us that something else potentially was going on. And we just don't know the full story yet. And we may never know the full story, but we certainly can use the information we're getting to try to patch the puzzle together. And I just think it's very important, if you have not watched the news release from Fox 13 Tampa Bay, go watch it. It actually plays the 911 call from the other witness stating that they saw Mr. Laundrie be the aggressor in a separate incident. So him claiming complete victimhood status and domestic violence long term, and resulting in him snapping to defend himself, no longer potentially something he can use to defend himself, because now we have a scenario in which he is the aggressor. So that dog won't hunt anymore for him. Also, I did some digging. I didn't have a lot of internet connectivity today, but when I did digging on domestic violence and case numbers and stats from 2020 and early 2021. And I will have you know that across the board, domestic violence is up at least 36% in every country, 36% at least in every country. I think India had the highest sleep, and I think it may have been over 200%. Domestic violence instances were over 200%. I also, in my last video, linked another very similar domestic violence case URL. There are tons of these stories out there. There are tons of these hyper-emotional people that seem to have been just triggered by the lockdown, triggered by the detachment, triggered by the emotional stress, and it just takes the emotional stress takes a physical toll on your body, and it will stress you out to the point where you can justify and create scenarios and really become this paranoid person that then snaps and acts out. And we're seeing people act out against the ones they should love the most, and it is increasing all over the world between 36 and 200 times, the average being around a 70% increase. So potentially a very telling narrative about mass psychosis that's been created from the mental crisis that lockdown pushed upon everyone. A lot of theories about mental health and the lockdown. And there's also been an increase in self-harm, suicides, stuff like that. So across the board, we are seeing much more aggressive behavior. Even though we're home, we should be home with the ones we love, we're seeing much more aggressive behavior. And to me, it makes perfect sense, because when you live in a fear state and you're stressed and you're defensive, it triggers an anger response. And so even if you're not angry at somebody for something, you're going to be in an anger response zone due to your chemistry and your hormones and your physical and emotional balance. So, and like, this may not be an intentional mass psychosis, but it most certainly is. Yeah, no. My husband, he keeps himself very busy as well. And, it's very important to live separate lives, even though you're a couple. It's very important to have your own interest and your own time and stuff like that. So, even though I am now disabled and pretty much stuck at home, I still have separate interests than my husband. And so we spent way more time together when I was more mobile. And we spend a lot less time together, but the quality of our time is better when we're together. But I've told him, keep your activities, keep your pastimes and the favorite things that you have, keep doing them, because you need to be sane. And then I just had to shift into less physical things that I could do that would, keep me busy and motivated and in a positive mind state. And perhaps we're seeing just how fragile the mental health across the world is. Perhaps we're seeing, potentially since the world wars, potentially we're seeing the largest mass psychosis, and the statistical data coming in now to uphold it. Because a 200% increase in some countries for domestic violence since the lockdown. That's the only thing that's changed is the lockdown. That's the only stressor, the lockdown. We need to think about that. We need to think about what are we doing? What are we doing to mankind with these fear ingrained motivational, my patience is wearing thin kind of issues? You know, it's apparently obviously having a toll. So I just wanted to come on because I've been super busy and I saw that and I wanted to pass that along. If you have not seen or heard the 911 call that witnesses saw Brian Laundrie being the aggressor, it is on Fox 13 Tampa Bay YouTube page. Go listen to it. It takes his defense potentially as I'm always the victim, I'm always being beat up, and I snap when trying to defend myself. That's what I intentionally, you know, that's what I immediately thought he would go, that's what his intentions would possibly be. But since somebody called in and said, no, we saw him being the aggressor, he struck her several times, it potentially takes that off the table for him, because now we've identified that, yes, she had a physical contact that day, but in previous episodes, he was the aggressor with physical contact. And also, I'm sure that they will be looking for defensive DNA, and they're also going to be looking at the hand patterns of, with the pictures that the officer took, they're going to be looking at hand patterns to see if, which way the hand was coming from, and if it was less of a slap and more of a defensive act, potentially. So those are things that I'm sure that investigators are looking at now too. But this was for me, it kind of made the light bulb snap, and I go, okay, well, now he's truly in a pickle. If he is potentially the culprit, then this changes the entire case and his entire defense. And I'm also curious to see how this is going to be handled for potential accomplice charges with the parents. Have they been in the middle enough for the court system to say you are now considered an accomplice? So are they hiding things? Are they deliberately hiding things? Did they deliberately act to hide, cover up, and help him evade police? So I'm anxious to see how this turns out. Yeah, he's definitely running. Okay, yeah, John Q is talking to the family of baby Mackenzie. That may be something y'all want to check in. This is all I'm going to tell you tonight. I've had a rough day. I'm still very tired. I'm going to finish what little bit of work I need to do and then hit the bed. I'm crashing because I've had last 36 hours have been rough for me. And if I hear anything else, I will do a quick update. But this changes potentially everything, and I wanted you all to know. Again, it's Fox 13 Tampa Bay, the YouTube page. Go listen to the 911 call where Brian is the aggressor. Potentially a shakeup for the defense team if he is potentially the culprit in this case. Hope everybody's having a good start to the week. And it's raining here. I want to see the sun again. But it will help me sleep as it hits my tin roof. So, Mama Liz out. I'll see y'all later.